Welcome back to Crawford-Clark Close-Up. Since he trailblazed Reservoir Dogs onto screens over a quarter of a century ago, Tennessee-born Tarantino has become the definition of an auteur. With every one of his 9, or is it 10, the debate's still on, movies to date, there's always that ingrained spark of energy and left field that makes each film stand out among others released in their respective years. To celebrate the release of his latest opus, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, over the last month we've gone back to the beginning to watch and critique every Tarantino release to date to present our top 10 ranking of the director's diverse output. Yes, we've gone for a top 10, despite the fact that Tarantino still regards his fourth film, Kill Bill, as one wholly bloody 4-hour affair. In this ranking, we're separating Volume 1 and Volume 2 because, in hindsight, one is clearly a lot more engrossing than the other. As always, this is a subjective list, and you're unlikely to agree with everything here, so have your say on your favourite Tarantino movies in the comments below, and please respect our choices. Let's get the housekeeping out of the way. Come and find us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for Crawford-Clark Close-Up. You can also drop us an email to crawfordclarkcloseup@gmail.com with any suggestions for improvements to the channel or subjects that we can review. Most importantly, click that subscribe button at the top of the page if you enjoyed this review so we can grow this channel and keep bringing you more regular content. So we kick off our top 10 with, probably unsurprisingly, the entry that usually finds its way into the bottom of these rankings, and the film that Tarantino himself admits is his weakest, 2007's Death Proof. Shot in a grainy style, a former Hollywood stuntman, played superbly in fact by Kurt Russell, turns on the charm with some stereotypically irritating bimbo types in bars before tempting them to take a ride in his seemingly death-proof stunt car. He decides to test the theory with his unsuspecting passengers and goes for the attack, until 3 young ladies decide to fight back when he stupidly tries it on again after getting hospitalised. Tarantino cameos himself again, and the film is characteristically verbose, but for what it is, the film overstays its welcome, despite the fact that this is one of the shortest Tarantino movies. At number 9 we have 2015's The Hateful Eight. It's hard to say that any of Tarantino's films are outright bad, because none of them are, and his 8th film isn't either. It's just a very long, drawn-out affair for, again, very little purpose. A bounty hunter and his prisoner find shelter in the Wyoming winter in a cabin that's inhabited by a bunch of unsavoury characters. The film is another typically starry Tarantino number with Samuel L. Jackson, Tim Roth, Kurt Russell, Bruce Dern and Jennifer Jason Leigh leading the pack, and it's definitely one of Tarantino's grisliest and arguably best shot movies. There's just 8 better films. At number 8, we split the behemoth Kill Bill with the lesser of the 2 films, despite it still being a solid second part of the revenge story, Volume 2. After merely hinting as to why Uma Thurman's bride would want to go on a murderous rampage of her former comrades in Volume 1, plumping instead to demonstrate her fury in all its bloody, glorious fashion, Volume 2 is more introspective, focusing on some of the gang that the bride hasn't gotten around to murdering yet, but spending the majority of the screen time on the bride going up against David Carradine's charming as a viper, Bill. If the final half-an-hour confrontation with Bill seems a bit of a letdown, given we've come this far with this character, the previous 90 minutes are still solid Tarantino. At number 7, this is where we probably get controversial, but as we've already said, it's tough to whittle down a bunch of films that are essentially all great to brilliant. It's Tarantino's debut, Reservoir Dogs, and the chief reason it's not higher on this list is due to the fact that this is a director trying to decide how far he can go with his creativity and storytelling. 6 criminals, unknown to one another and given code names of different colours so as not to blow anyone's cover, are hired to pull off a jewellery heist, but when things go awry, it becomes clear that there's a mole in the team, an undercover police officer. But which of them is it? It's an intriguing premise and a well-executed debut feature, demonstrating great promise from the upcoming director. Sitting just outside the top 5 at number 6 is 2012's Django Unchained. After the rapturous performance from Christoph Waltz in Tarantino's previous Inglourious Basterds, Waltz returned to the Tarantino canon to play Dr. King Schultz, whose charisma impresses from the moment he makes his debut, freeing Jamie Foxx's Django from slavery at the outset of the film. Once again, some of the film's length could have been shaved to make a more concise, palatable experience for one sitting, but this is essential Tarantino, and that shootout at the Candyland Ranch in the film's climax is spectacular. The film boasts a second Oscar-winning screenplay from Tarantino as well, second to 1994's Pulp Fiction, which is coming a little later on this list. Beginning the top 5, we have the most underrated Tarantino film, Jackie Brown. This reviewer was admittedly quick to dismiss the film on first watch as a bloated movie about nothing, but the more leisurely pace of proceedings here, coupled with the fact that this is the first of Tarantino's movies to be adapted from a pre-existing novel, Elmer Leonard's Rum Punch, make this one of the most unique films in the canon. The cast are superb here, particularly the eponymous Jackie Brown herself, played by Pam Grier, as well as Robert Forster, Samuel L. Jackson, Bridget Fonda, Michael Keaton, and one of the most laid-back performances to date from Robert De Niro. At number 4, we have Tarantino's newest release, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and it's here on the list primarily because of its charm and fantastic lead performances from DiCaprio and Pitt. DiCaprio is Rick Dalton, an action star in Hollywood who, in the late 1960s, is becoming anxious that he's not getting the parts and the notoriety that he should be. And Pitt is Cliff Boone, Dalton's no-nonsense stuntman who continues to support Dalton but clearly doesn't share in the luxury of his boss. After years of violent, sweeping, epic movies like Bastards, Django and Hateful Eight, it's refreshing to see Tarantino mature in his subject matter and his presentation, and this is ultimately one of the most engaging entries in his canon to date. That's not to say that the trademark humorous dialogue and violence is absent from the film, far from it. It is too long, and they didn't make anything out of Margot Robbie as the ill-fated Sharon Tate, but the film makes you feel nostalgic for classic Hollywood, and it actually feels the most un-Tarantino of Tarantino's movies. Starting the top 3, we have 2009's Inglourious Basterds. Undoubtedly one of Tarantino's finest works. You cannot say that Tarantino isn't brave in his filmmaking. Here he's upturning German history with his World War II opus. That opening monologue sequence with Christoph Waltz's Colonel Hans Lander is one of the most engrossing openings to any film, let alone a Tarantino one, and the narrative is relentless from there on out, culminating in that fantastic shootout at the end of the cinema. At number 2, it's our biggest Tarantino guilty pleasure, and it's here that we return to Kill Bill with Volume 1. It's breathtaking action set piece after another, with one of the best soundtracks to any of his films, and an outrageously gory finale, but it's the revenge aspect of the narrative that fits so perfectly with Tarantino's sensibilities as a filmmaker. It's no surprise that Uma Thurman is the director's perfect leading lady. He directs her brilliantly here, and she never feels out of her depth. The cinematography is superb, the editing is fast and furious, and the film is relentless. Whether you're a fan of both parts of the whole story or not, you can't deny that Volume 1 is a gutsy, entertaining romp. Leave your brain at the door and enjoy. And our number 1 favourite Tarantino movie should be no surprise to anyone. It's the cliché result, I know, but come on, Pulp Fiction is fantastic. From the non-linear narrative to the incredible performances from a who's who of Hollywood in the mid-90s, Fiction is bold filmmaking, even in its quieter, more reflective moments, and demonstrates Tarantino, with only his second feature film, at the top of his game. So that's our ranking of Tarantino's work to date, with talk that there's only another 1, possibly 2 more features to come from the talented filmmaker. We could be updating our list in years to come, but for now, this is where our loyalties lie. Where do you stand with Tarantino? Lover? Hater? or just indifference? Let us know your own ranking in the comments below, and ensure you subscribe to the channel for more regular reviews of new and classic releases. Coming soon, we'll be celebrating the 25th anniversary of Friends with another TV ranking. Plus, in preparation for one of the year's most anticipated new releases, It Chapter 2, we'll be reviewing the TV miniseries from 1990, as well as Andy Muschietti's It Chapter 1, ahead of the new release. For now, thanks for watching, and until next time, that's a wrap.